Good afternoon, folks, or for some of you it may be morning, and maybe some people on the other side of the earth at night and you found something to watch. Anyway, I'm going to talk more today about karma. That's one thing I'm going to talk about. The other thing I'm going to talk about is how you can know something, or let's put it this way, there are four ways of knowing, and I'll discuss those a little bit. Karma is something that I talked about last time where there is an action that you may do or participate in that gives you a legacy, let's say, and a need to balance it. Now, it could be something that you've done that's hurt somebody else, and you need to balance that out by doing something good, and you may not even know that you're doing it. But, if you stay with the course, you're bound to cover it and bound to get the equilibrium. But on the other hand, it may be something that you've done very well, that has a very high virtue, and that still gives you a need to recognize that there is a pathway that somebody else is taking that you may be involved in. Now that takes a little bit of thought, doesn't it? So I'll let you think about that. The other thing about karma is that you can equalize it in this lifetime, and remember that recognizing reincarnation, that is, that more lives than one, is a fact of life. It's a fact of nature. So we have to do that in order to talk about karma in any useful way and in balancing it across lives. So we do that. You may do it in the next life. You may do it in this life. You may do it 100 years from now. You may do it 1,000 years from now. I don't know the answer to that. And not very many people do. There is a way that you can discover what karma you owe or that you have to balance, and that takes some exercise and some thought. A lot of very, very extensive and useful and hard thought, and that's so it will come to you in dreams or in imagination that you just spur of the moment, something clicks. And there it is. And that's all it takes. But you owe in the Akasha records, which I explained last time, that's the film that your life is being recorded by, here we go, angels in one of the heavens. And that remains there, so that the Akashic record is something that you will have to deal with, whether you know it or not. Okay. Now, we talk a lot about why the Book of Enoch, we've talked several times about that, and why it isn't in the Bible. There's essentially about four ways of knowing. And the reason I'm talking about this is because it's just not oh yeah, well, it's going to be in the Bible or it's not going to be in the Bible and everybody's okay with it. That's not the case. a thought or an idea, such as putting the book of Enoch in the Bible, takes some doing. And we have to say that the reason that you might think it ought to be there, one of the reasons, is because a whole lot of people think it should. And that's one way of knowing. That's a belief that people have because a whole lot of people believe it. And that's the one way of knowing. Another way of knowing is what you've already encountered a lot and thought about it, and that is through authoritarian. What I mean by that, the authority, not authoritarian, authority that would be speaking, like for instance, a church father would say yes or no or something of that nature, and so you tend to believe them because you give them the authority to help you make a belief system. The next way of knowing is, I'm going to say science, but that's the fourth way of knowing. What happened is I forgot the third way. If you, I'm going to look at my notes in a minute and get that one for you. But the fourth way of knowing is science. Now, we in the Western world have followed the Greek method of figuring stuff out. In other words, we call it the scientific method now, but it was it's you have to see it, and the scientific method is you set up a hypothesis, or that is a what if, then you test that. What if? And if it turns out that it's true, well, you might set up another hypothesis. And so that's how you develop, eventually, a theory. A theory is it doesn't just pop out. And so then you, if it doesn't show, then you say, it wasn't supported. And the scientific method has given you a way of knowing about the what if that you set up. So that's those are three ways of knowing. And I'll find the fourth way and talk to you about that next time. So now remember, the three ways I've talked about are everybody else believes it, so it's okay to believe it. And so you set up a belief system of your own based on, well, everybody believes it, so it must be true. The next one is authoritarian, authority. That is like a church father says, well, this is the way it should be, or this belongs in the Bible, or this doesn't belong in the Bible. And by the way, that's got to be the way that the books of the Bible got put together. Now, can be some argument about that, but essentially it's the experts, if you will, that decide, that you let decide what ought to be there or not be there, and you take their word for it. For instance, if you're a minister, if you go to church, or even if you don't go to church, says something maybe on TV that says it's true, well, maybe you tend to believe it because he's an expert. Not all of them are. Some of them are just kind of way off in left field. But you consider him an expert, and so you will believe what he says. I remembered the third way, and that's the a priori. Now, a priori is a term which means, and this is one that's used very often, self-evident. Stuff like, well, it stands to reason. Well, it just is. It's self-evident. And often this is found in church words, in church messages, and things of that nature, that it just is true. And that would be also something that if for instance, a prophet was writing or you read what a prophet wrote in a Bible, you would say, well, that's true. That's true. It's self-evident. What he said has got to be true because that was God's word. And the fourth way, excuse me for mixing those up, the fourth way is the scientific method, which is the way that Western world scientists tend to use to find out if something is true or not. So it's like, we just had a pandemic and stuff like that, and they do testing and all that. They put hypotheses together. That's a what if. And if it proves to be right, if it actually works, well, that's good. They can use it. So that goes through several different things. So I'm going to be quiet now and ask you to think about those 4 different ways of knowing and see what you think you know and how it is that you know that. So have a good rest of the day and the rest of the week, and we'll see you next time.